All right, we are given a two-column proof where we are also told that A and B are parallel lines and C and D are parallel lines. And from this, we have to show the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 11 is 180. Whenever you're dealing with two-column proofs, you take what you're given, allow that to formulate some kind of game plan in your mind, and probably make yourself a rough draft before you actually get started. So you take what you have and you kind of allow yourself to go from point A to point B. Okay, and find a way to connect these two. Now, if I look at 2 and 11, they're not connected. I need to find a way to connect 2 and 11. So I'm going to make myself a little game plan here. And step number 1 is going to be given. Always given. I'm not touching this yet. I'm not there. So let's try to get from 2 to 11 somehow. So I can take the fact that 2 and 10, for example, 2 and 10 are congruent because they correspond. Since C and D are parallel, 2 and 10 are equal because they correspond. Can I get from 10 to 11? Not really, but what I can do is I can go from 10 to 11. I could say that since C and B are parallel, I can say that 10 plus 11 is 180. And that's because the interior same side angles add up to 180. So since 2 is 10, I can finish this out in one more step by saying, since 2 is 10, why don't we replace that 10 with 2 and say 2 plus 11 equals 180, and that is by substitution. I'm done. All right, so I am going to now complete this two-column proof with this information and make it look a lot prettier. And, of course, using all the appropriate symbols, because in my rough draft, in my mind, I don't really care about the symbols as long as I know what I'm doing. So A is parallel to B, C is parallel to D, and the reason for that is because it's given. Always, always, always start out with your given statement. What was 2? 2 was 2 is equal to 11, 10, I mean. So we're going to say that the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 10. And once again, that's because 2 and 10 were corresponding angles and C and D were parallel. So we could say the definition of corresponding angles. Use symbols. You're allowed to. What color did I use next? Green. 3. We said in 3 that 10 and 11 are the same. No, they're not. 10 plus 11 is 180. The measure of angle 10 plus the measure of angle 11 is 180 degrees, and that's because interior same side angles are supplementary. Last but not least, now that I know that 2 is 10, I can replace that 10 with 2 and say the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 11 equals 180 degrees, and that's using the substitution property. So when given a bunch of parallel lines, use that. You're going to use words like interior angles or alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, corresponding, same side, supplementary. you're going to use all of that to your advantage. And from there, we were only able to do this in 4 steps. So not so bad. I'll take it. Given angle 1 and angle 4 are supplementary, we need to prove that A and B are parallel. Now, there's a bunch of ways that you can prove that A and B are parallel, and here they are. You can show that 2 lines are parallel if corresponding angles are congruent, if alternate interior angles are congruent, if consecutive or same side interior angles are supplementary, means they add up to 180, if 2 lines are parallel to the same line, if 2 lines are perpendicular to the same line, or if alternate exterior angles are congruent. So those are the ways that we can prove that A and B are congruent. Let's see what I'm going to do. Whenever I have a 2-column proof, I like to make a little bit of a rough draft. So I need to get from 1 to 4. Actually, I have 1 and 4. They're supplementary. So I need to show that A and B are congruent. So maybe I could take 1 and 4 and use that to connect 3 to 2. And once I show that 1 and 2 are congruent, then I have corresponding angles are congruent, therefore A and B are parallel. So that's my goal. Take 1 and 4, get to 2, and show that 1 and 2 are congruent. So a little rough draft over here. 1 plus 4 is 180. From that, I can say that, well, since what am I told? I'm told that C and D are parallel. That means 3 plus 4 is also 180, right? Now, I can look at this and say, like, okay, well, I see 4 in common, but that doesn't really do much for me. I also see that since they're both equal 180, I could say 1 plus 4 equals 3 plus 4, but that doesn't really help me. Not yet. Because if I were to do that, that gives me 1 equals 3. I'm not there yet. And I want to connect 1 and 2. I need to get 2 involved. But you know what? 3 and 2 are the same thing. 3 is 2. So I can now say that 2 plus 4 is 180. So if 1 plus 4 is 180 and 2 plus 4 is 180, then 1 plus 4 equals 2 plus 4. There's a 4 on the left. There's a 4 on the right. They cross each other out. 1 equals 2 gives me exactly what I want to make this proof happen. So that's the order that I'm going to do things. I'm going to start first off with my given. Okay? Angle 1 and angle 4 are supplementary. Abbreviate, you're allowed to. Also, C is parallel to D, and that's going to be my given. Always, 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 always start out with your given. Now, if 1 and 4 are supplementary, that allows me to say that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees. Now, I didn't write all the cute little symbols over here because this is my rough draft. I just have to make sure that I write my symbols over here. Now, the reason for that is the definition of supplementary angles. Look, abbreviations again. Use them. Do it. Do it. All right, what else did I say? I then said that the measure of angle 3 and 4 add up to 180 degrees. And that is the definition of same side interior angles. Once again, being a little bit lazy with my wording because I don't have a whole lot of space to deal with. If your teacher lets you be lazy, be lazy. If they don't, don't. But again, I'm being lazy here because space is limited for me. I'm not the best drawer. Good thing I'm not a dresser, am I right? 4. 4, I was able to say that the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 3, and that's the definition of vertical angles. Don't know why I didn't just do those quote thingies again. Too late. Too late. Where am I now? I now know that since 2 and 3 are the same, I can rewrite line 3 and make this the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180. And that was using substitution. So substitution, property of equality. So I'll just say substitution prop. Okay. Going back to red. Since 2 plus 4 equals 180 and 1 plus 4 equals 180, then the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 4 equals the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 4. And I could use substitution. I can use transitive property. I like transitive property, so let's use transitive property of equality. Last but not least, I could subtract the measure of angle 4 from both sides. I could subtract the measure of angle 4 from both sides, and that tells me that angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2, and that's the substitution property of equality. Subtraction property of equality. All this got me to that point where now 2 equals 1, 2 and 1 correspond, 2 and 1 are equal, which means A and B are parallel. So last but not least, I can't use green because it'll blend with the green down there. So let's go back to black. I could say that A is parallel to B, and that's because corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. All right, so this falls under the category of proving lines are parallel. Usually you have geometry books with sections dedicated to proving lines parallel. And when you're trying to prove lines parallel, you look at the 6 options that I gave you at the beginning of this problem and try to make one of those things happen. I did by showing that 1 and 2 are congruent, therefore A and B are parallel. And I'm done. All right, we got a 2-column proof. We are given angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent. We're also given P and Q are parallel. I need to show that Q is perpendicular to A. So in order to show that Q is perpendicular to A, I need to show that 1 and 2 are 90 degrees. So this is actually not too bad. All right, I have my given. What I always like to do is I like to make myself a rough draft over here. So if I'm given the fact that 1 and 2 are congruent, and also 1 and 2 are directly next to each other and form a straight angle, 1 plus 2 is 180. I'm also told that 1 and 2 are the same. So I could say 1 plus 1 equals 180, and that's the substitution property. If I combine like terms, 2 times angle 1, I know this doesn't look right, but this is a rough draft and I know what I'm doing. So 2 times angle 1 is 180. Divide both sides by 2, and angle 1 equals 90, which means angle 2 is 90, which means since 1 and 2 are 90, in fact, I don't even need to say the fact that 2 is 90. I could skip that part. Once I know that 1 is 90, I have enough information to finish my proof and say Q is perpendicular to A. So let's set this up using all this information over here. All right, step number 1 is always going to be your given. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and P is parallel to Q. I rhymed. Always appreciate that when I can make a song out of my proofs. Speaking of which, Proof is the name of a dead rapper, so he did a lot of songs. The measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. We said that because they're right next to each other. So we can say the definition of supplementary angles. Definition of supplementary angles. Look at me being lazy and abbreviating. You're allowed to do that if your teacher lets you. What did I do next? Well, since I know that 1 and 2 are the same, I said the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 1 is 180. So I replace 2 with 1, and whenever you replace something with something else, that's the substitution property. Substitution prop. Four is, since the measure of angle 1 is right next to the measure of angle 1, why don't I just say I have 2 of those measure of angle 1s and set that equal to 180. What do we do there? We combine like terms. If I divide both sides by 2, I got the measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees. So I divided both sides by 2. That's the division property of equality. So I'll say division prop. Now that I know that the measure of angle 1 is a right angle, I have enough information to prove that Q is perpendicular to A. And that's by the definition of perpendicular angles. So I like it. I'm happy with it. I'm sticking with it. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything I need to add to this video, and I really don't. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's just you have to make your rough draft and then go from there. And, you know, it's a pretty clean proof. I'm happy with it. Holy bonfire on my Aunt Sally's lawn. Look at the size of this thing. This is going to be a nightmare. Look at all the information we're given. Look at all this stuff. Look at what I'm trying to prove. It's everywhere. So what I need to do is I need to go from all of this info and show that BAE, which is U, is congruent to BCE, which is U. So I'm told stuff about parallel lines, so I'm probably going to have to deal with alternate interior angles, or maybe some type of angle, but it looks to me more like alternate interior angles. I'm told that BE, this uppy-downy thing, and DF, this lefty-righty thing, are perpendicular. That gives me the 90-degree angle. I'm also told that AEB and CEB are the same. So I have a lot of stuff going on here, and the first thing I'm going to do is make myself a rough draft. So I'm not even going to try to do this right away. I'm going to save the parallel line stuff. I'm told that BE is perpendicular to DF. So what that means, if BE is perpendicular to DF, I can start out by saying that the measure, and again, this is a rough draft that I'm about to make, so don't cling to the fact that I'm not using the proper symbols and stuff like that. I can say that BED and BEF are both 90. BED is 90 bed, and BEF is also 90. I know that BED is BEA. Actually, they want me to do AEB. I hate it when they put it out of order. BED is these two guys added together. So AEB plus AED, a shocking angle. If you get it, you get it. Is 90. Also, BEF consists of BEC, but they want me to write it out as CEB. So CEB plus CEF is 90. Angle addition postulate. What do I know? I know that these guys are the same. So why don't I just take one of them and replace one of them with, like, I don't know, why don't I take this AEB and replace it with CEB? So I have CEB plus AED equals 90. You don't change. You don't change. You don't change. So since they're both 90, why don't I try this out? Why don't I try the transitive property and write out CEB plus AED, which equals 90. Since that equals 90, they're now equal to each other. So CEB plus CEF. Now, what I can do is, since CEB is on the left and the right, I can subtract that out and end up with AED equals CEF. Now, this is terrific news because AED is this guy right here. AED is this guy right here, which is congruent to A or BAE. Okay, they want me to use BAE, not CAE. Annoying, but that's what they want me to do. These guys are congruent. Why? Because this is parallel and these are alternate interior angles. So I can say BAE is congruent to AED. And I can say that CEF, which is this guy, is congruent to how do they want me to write it out? BCE. BCE. And that's because of the parallel line stuff. So since AED is CEF, I can write out BAE instead of AED is equal to, and instead of CEF, I can write out BCE, and that's what I want to do. So there's a lot going on here. This is my rough draft. We're going to have to write small, so here I go, my given. Oh my gosh. Time is money, space is money. This is my given. Given. Okay? Don't leave comments like, you're lazy, I hate you. Only 3 people watch these movies anyway. And if someone actually does watch this and gets this far, please do write in the comments, why you're lazy, I hate you. I would appreciate that. All right. The measure of angle BED, now I have to bring back my symbols to be appropriate. The measure of angle BED is 90 degrees. And the measure of angle BEF is 90 degrees. I'm going to regret putting that in 2 lines. I'm going to run out of room. The reason for that is the definition of perpendicular angles. Okay? Let's get smaller. Aim small, miss small. Patriot. The measure of angle AEB plus the measure of angle AED is 90 degrees. And the measure of angle CED plus the measure of angle CEF is 90 degrees. That was because I added these two angles to get that. I added these two angles to get that angle addition postulate. I then said that CEB plus AED is 90 degrees, and I used substitution for that. So the measure of angle CEB plus the measure of angle AED is 90. And I use the substitution property for that one. Once I have this guy equals 90, that guy equals 90, I set them equal to each other. So that was the measure of angle CEB plus the measure of angle CEF equals the measure of angle CEB plus AED. Gosh darn it. That was transitive property. CB on the left and CB on the right cancel out, and that's because of the subtraction property. So that left me with AED is congruent or equal to the measure of angle CEF. And I did subtraction property of equality. I think I'm going to make it. That led me to go back to the parallel lines information and allowed me to say alternate interior angle stuff. So that was the measure of angle BAE was equal to the measure of angle AED, and the measure of angle CEF is congruent to the measure of angle BCE. And that was definition of alternate interior angles. And last but not least, since AED was BAE and CEF was BEC or BCE, then Bay is before Christ. Sounds like my dating history, right? The measure of angle BAE is the same as the measure of angle BCE, and that was substitution property of equality. Maybe you can get away with transitive for that one. Substitution. That was a nightmare. I don't know if there's a faster way that you could do it. I don't know if there's a way that you can do it in less steps, but you know what? You're not watching my videos to do it any better way. You're watching my videos because you love me. So, yeah, that is a proof where you need to use parallel lines and perpendicular lines to your advantage, and we did. Took a while. It was worth every second just to spend it with you. Like and subscribe.